Ron MacLean and Don Cherry were the faces of Hockey Night in Canada's Coach's Corner for over 30 years, with Cherry's fiery commentary balanced by MacLean's calculated moderation.
Hey, here's the deal.
I haven't changed, and I'm not changing now, and that's a little treat for you fellas.
I got to talk over the even the little chippy. You need
I'll
cute.
move him. At
No,
least-
never mind moving him. Just leave him alone. I got time?
Yes, don't have time for
He was
very
no.
Am I through already?
No.
Oh,
We got 2 minutes.
I know I got to hurry as usual. What they need in this team is a big, tough winger. Grab a six-pack before you leave. You got to do that at the party. We have to hold this guy down when, his boyfriend scores. You do it for a role, now I'm in trouble. Watch it. That's the way to do it, kiddo.
Terrific.
Their partnership was a cornerstone of Canadian hockey. It crumbled due to MacLean's disloyalty during the so-called 2019 Poppygate incident.
I was talking to a veteran. I said, I'm not going to run the poppy thing anymore because what's the sense? I live in Mississauga. Nobody wears, very few people wear a poppy. Downtown Toronto, forget it, downtown Toronto. Nobody wears a poppy. And I'm not going to. He says, wait a minute. How about running it for the people that buy them? Now, you go to the small cities, and the rows on rows, you people love, they come here, whatever it is, you love our way of life, you love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price. Anyhow, I'm going to run it again for you great people and good Canadians that bought a poppy. I'm still going to run it anyhow.
Love you for it.
MacLean seemed to nod in agreement during the broadcast. Shortly thereafter, Rogers Sportsnet fired Don Cherry. After Cherry's firing, MacLean then issued a public apology that distanced himself from Cherry's remarks, betraying his longtime colleague and fueling public outrage among fans who saw him as spineless. The rift deepened in July of this year when MacLean, in a Kingston Whig Standard interview, smeared Cherry by falsely claiming he was hospitalized with pneumonia in Boston during the 2019 Stanley Cup Final and suggesting Cherry's comments were a deliberate exit strategy. Cherry denies these claims, calling MacLean's story a lie, while Cherry's wife Luba has banned MacLean from their home. Hockey icon Bobby Orr slammed MacLean for his dishonesty. Under pressure, MacLean recently visited Cherry's home in Mississauga to offer a weak apology for spreading falsehoods, but the damage was done. Cherry, hurt by MacLean's repeated betrayals, seemed to make it clear their friendship was beyond repair, exposing MacLean's role as the true villain in their storied partnership's collapse. Here with more is Toronto Sun columnist Joe Warmington. Hey Joe, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Richard. It has been quite a dilemma. Interesting, as you were laying that out, the one thing that it starts with, you said about the comments about immigrants that was made in November of 2019. Of course, it never was about immigrants. People inferred that it was. And, he talked about you come here, whatever it is, land of milk and honey, but he did not say immigrants. He did not specifically he didn't even mean that. We know what he meant. He meant everybody. He's talking about all the hipsters and every Canadian. And his point was that, it's poppy time. He didn't see them anywhere. And he would like people, the least you can do is to remember the fallen. So that was the number one misconception. And Rogers Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, and the rest, the left, all the cancel culture, they just dove on that. And they did a terrible pile-on an 85-year-old man by suggesting that he was being racial, racist, discriminatory, when all he was saying was something that Ron MacLean agreed with at the time, and most viewers agreed with, which is, around Remembrance Day, the least you can do is to wear a poppy to remember these freedoms and the life that we have, because there's people that didn't get to live through that. They sacrificed it. And you think back to our grandparents, in my case, my grandfather served over in World War II. Many people lost family there. Many families, there's so many people that were killed. And it is the least you can do. And that was his opinion. And so they fired him for that. They fired him on Remembrance Day for that, if you can imagine. I remember when they fired him, he phoned me. I was actually covering Remembrance Day. And the one thing that Don Cherry said to me was, to make sure that I don't drop covering Remembrance Day, to cover him being fired on Remembrance Day. Just that. He didn't mind it as a separate, but not to, because I would have probably, perhaps dropped what I was covering and did that. But it's so important to him that the veterans are honored. And so it's gross what they did. And it's even grosser what Ron MacLean did.
Yeah, let's talk about his. Can you just sort of summarize what led to this? This was in the Kingston Whig Standard, I believe. This interview. What led to the? What did he say exactly?
Well, what he said, I think you did a good job of summarizing it. But basically what he said was he's trying to get the monkey off his back of why he's been taking a lot of heat for many years. People hate his guts. His ratings aren't what they were, but if they meet him, they don't want to meet him. And he senses all that. He's a bit of a pariah. He's a Judas. He turned on his wingman. I mean, it's unconscionable to do that. If Don had done something really wrong, it's one thing. Committed a crime, it's another thing. He knows what he meant. They said that the year before, the year before that, and the year before that. That's why Ron MacLean said, that's why we love you, because he knew what he meant. And so he just was getting the heat, and he was told, you're with us or you're with him. And he took us. I get it, $1 million a year. I wouldn't want to be in a situation where someone said you can go with the guy we're firing, or you can lose the $1 million a year and go with them if you want. But he had the power to say no. And it's eating him up, Richard, for all these years. And he knows what he did. He knows that he was prepared to throw his partner literally under a bus and around, say, go get him kind of thing. And that's what happened. It was horrible what he did. So he was trying to change the narrative in this interview, which is a Post-Media interview. I work for Post-Media. Ran into Kingston Whig Standard, which is adding insult to injury because that's Don's hometown. This yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of his daughter Cindy dying. His brother Richard just died in the spring. And so, it's just a horrible set of circumstances that happened. And anyway, so that's what he did, and it backfired on him. And people went, wait a minute, this isn't true. He wasn't in a Boston hospital. Now, what I was amazed at, Richard, is how nobody called to check with him. I mean, that's basic journalism. I mean, we're reporters. If you have something about somebody, you call them. And if they don't call you back, okay, then you say, well, they didn't call back to confirm or deny. No one checked with, Don. It wasn't hard to do. He's got email. He's got social media. Everybody in the media has his number or his son's number.
Right. And MacLean also tried to paint this sad portrait of Don, that he's alone, he doesn't have any friends, and so forth. I mean, where did that come from?
It's delusional thinking. Ron MacLean had decided that he was the star of Coach's Corner, and he was the star of Hockey Night in Canada, and not a weatherman from Red Deer that rode the coattails of Don Cherry to end up getting to where he got to making $1 million a year, which most people in media certainly don't make. He got there on Don Cherry's coattails, and as a result, it bothered him, and he decided that he was the star of it, and that him to say that Don Cherry doesn't have many friends. I mean, it's a crazy thing to say. And as I said in my tweet about that, he's got millions of friends, got a lot more friends than you have, Judas, and that's exactly what Ron was. Now, I know you're going to get to it, but Ron knows he was wrong, and he went over, even though Don said he's not welcome at his house, just like he did for his birthday.
That was his 90. He showed up uninvited on his 90th birthday, and Don seemed a little uncomfortable with that whole situation.
And then he showed up to say he was sorry here, and Don's not ready to forgive him yet. Like in any kind of a disagreement with someone you're close to, whether it's a wife or a husband or whatever, it takes time sometimes to heal. I think the first step is an apology, and I'm sure that Don would get there. But he's tired of being pushed away. He is almost 92. I mean, he'll be 92 in February, and he is a national icon, Canadian treasure. He has been very badly maligned. I mean, he had his career taken from him. He made $1 million a year. That was stolen from him too. I mean, it's not just the thing. I mean, that's how he made his living. Even though he's 85, he'd made some money. He doesn't live big, but that's what he was making on there. That was taken from him. So it's pretty bad what Ron did. but I thought it was a first step. I don't want, a lot of people want Ron fired from Hockey Canada. I'm not saying that, and Don hasn't said that. But what we'd like him to do is to apologize publicly for this, and also apologize for 2019 for not standing up for him and admitting that he blew it and that he didn't have the, I'm trying to think of the right word, the man parts to stand up and to stick up for his friend. He could have done it. He had the power to do it. Yeah, there's a little bit of risk, but there's no way that he could have led that. But he didn't care about that. And so he's got to do those things. And then, as I said, Rogers Sportsnet should reinstate Don, just like they did with renaming the stadium and Rob Ford. They can go back and try to fix it, or eventually putting Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. It's too late for Pete to see it, but people are talking about that now. They should do that now. Well, they can't. Well, Don's still here. And then, there's lots of debate over whether he should be given the Order of Canada. Of course, he should. There's no one more Canadian than Don.
I agree.
And then the Hall of Fame for hockey. Again, who's more famous in hockey than Don Cherry? I'm told to go, tread lightly on that, because, if we pound them too hard, that's a really special, unique little club. There are a lot of people that we feel should be in the Hall of Fame. The more you push them, the worse it is. So we'll let them figure that out. I think my personal opinion is I would like him in there. I don't know what category you put him in, whether it's broadcast or whether you put him in as a builder, but you put him in there.
Absolutely.
Hopefully it happens. But, again, I don't want to push anybody, Mr. Batman, whatever. I'm not criticizing. You have your criteria, and it's a great debate. But the Order of Canada, you think about it, Richard, when it comes to the troops, Canadian military, every time any of them fell, it was appointment, Coach's Corner was appointment television anyway. Even at 85, when, he wasn't quite as zipping as he was at 60 or at 50, you still tuned in because he did the right thing. He was Canadian. He was standing up for Canadian values and Canadian people that were putting their lives on the line in places like Afghanistan. He stuck up for, all the regular working staff. That's who Don Cherry is. That's what he came from, those roots. He came out of Kingston, and, he never lost those, that kind of Kingston mentality, which is a blue-collar, hardworking, good quality Canadian people. And there's nothing wrong with having a beer on the weekend and working for your family. And he supported the police. And, I support the police, but I'm a critic at times, and I write things when I don't like what they've done. And I'll say that. And boy, he would call me and give me hell for that. I mean, the police are the police for him.
Let me jump in here, Joe, because you
took him off.
You mentioned he would call you and give you hell. I mean, you have a special relationship with Don Cherry. You visit with him regularly. You post videos on the Toronto Sun website and so forth. How did he, just go back to 2 days ago, July 13th, when Ron MacLean showed up at his house to issue an apology? How did that go? I mean, can you paint kind of a picture? What did Don tell you about that?
He just said he ignored him. I mean, it sounded frosty. I mean, I only, I saw Ron MacLean had made a comment that he had apologized to Don personally, and he said that in the Toronto Star. I'm not going to quote out of the Toronto Star, so I went to Don, and Don called me back and said, he did come over, but he didn't say he accepted the apology. I don't want to make it worse. I mean, I don't know exactly. It was frosty, but it was a first step. I think it was good that Ron acknowledged it. Ron is not, Attila the Hun or anything like that. He's a guy it's gone to his head. He's become bigger than Don and bigger than everybody, and he's forgotten, and he needs to be reminded that, no, you're not the star of the show. The star of the show is Don Cherry, and he's the victim of this Machiavellian move to, prop yourself up over it, to, kind of push away the heat, which could have come to him too, because he's the moderator. Like you and I talking here now, Richard, if I say something offside, you've got to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And you will deal with it. And I've been on your show for 30 years. I've been on radio shows that you either hosted or produced, and we've had disagreements. And you managed that as a professional host. Ron didn't do that. He did not take that ownership. I mean, you tell me. You watched it. What do you think? You run shows. Did Ron handle that well?
No, I mean, it was unconscionable what he did, particularly in light of the fact that at one time earlier the roles were reversed, and it was Ron MacLean who was on the outs, and Don Cherry stood up for him and got him reinstated. People forget that.
Well, I don't forget it because I was the guy that, voted. We put together that plan to get Ron back, and it included Canadians signing a petition. I talked to Ron during that time and told him we're going to get his job back. And Ron, at that time, he was holding out for more money. That was the issue. He felt that he was underpaid. And, I didn't disagree with that. But I think, as I reminded him, we're all underpaid. I mean, let's not kid ourselves, because you're on television or radio and people recognize you when you go to the store. And in his case, you and I cover serious stuff like politics and the kid that gets hit by the drunk driver, or the shootings and all the horrible stuff that goes on in the world. It's not exactly fun for us. He's covering hockey. So people see people like that in a store or a bar or a restaurant or in the neighborhood. They're excited to meet them because it's a happy time for them. That's their recreation. And he forgot that. But he got it back quickly. And I think he did a good job. And he deserved that money. And it was Don Cherry who he could have easily said, at that time, he could have said, look, I don't care, give the money to me. He didn't do that. And then later, when they did actually, that was the first time they went after Ron. Then they went after him again, and they replaced him with George Stroumboulopoulos on Hockey Night in Canada. And, if I ever see George again, and I knew George even before he was known, he was a producer in radio. You knew him too.
Yeah, he was a board op at the Fan 590.
Right. And he always had something special about him. And I knew he was going to go places. And I'm so proud that he did. And I'm actually embarrassed about how I didn't really treat him all that well, because I felt that he was kind of honing in on Ron's job. And, I didn't, I wasn't really a fan of that move. And I articulated that. In retrospect, we have regrets of things we write or have said, opinions, and that's one of them. And if I ever see George Stroumboulopoulos again, I will personally apologize to him. I always hope to see him. I used to see him sometimes when I used to travel more in airports. He would be often going to LA or whatever, and I would see him many times. We were down at a hockey game, things like that. We don't do a lot of that now. But and what I have to say about that is the reason I would apologize to him is because I think he was badly treated by Hockey Night in Canada, and I think that was because of the Ron issue. Don Cherry kept Ron MacLean alive in that scenario, in that he wouldn't do Coach's Corner with Strombo. If he'd done Coach's Corner with Strombo, they would have had a new audience. Strombo would have changed the dynamic of it. It may have worked, it may not have worked. I think with Strombo's talent, it probably would have worked. He's a great talent, as you know. And that would have maybe helped Don too. Would have been a new dynamic. But instead, he said, I'm only doing that with MacLean, so that kept MacLean with some sort of foothold in the Hockey Night in Canada, which he didn't have. He would have been out and forgotten about. So when things went south for Strombo, which wasn't fair, he didn't really get a fair shot. I think having Ron MacLean still around that show killed Strombo. And I think a lot of us helped with that. And it was wrong what we did. I didn't do anything over the top or anything, but I didn't support him. I didn't treat him like a new young hot talent. I treated him as some sort of guy that was trying to move Ron out.
An interloper. Well, you had prior loyalties to Ron MacLean and Don Cherry, so that's fair.
I still have great respect and affection for Ron and what he's done. And I still think, and I always think, that you can fix these things. I mean, I try to write that all the time. I try to get Elon Musk and Trump to patch that nonsense up. But, sometimes you can't do it. And, I'm not supposed to be an arbiter or arbitrator of these things. But I'm a human being, and I like to see people getting along and not fighting.
Of course.
It might be a bit of a character flaw. But in retrospect, MacLean knows that he blew this thing. He's got to look in the mirror and go, you know what? I destroyed Don Cherry's legacy by not standing up for him. He didn't do anything wrong. He never said anything wrong.
No.
He never once, you can disagree when, I don't think that Don, he didn't like Alexander Ovechkin in the beginning. Well, he's now the all-time goal scorer. So, again, but he grew to like Ovechkin, and that was because of Ovechkin. Ovechkin liked Don Cherry, even though he was critical. That's the kind of guy Ovechkin is. But you remember, Don Cherry didn't like Crosby either, or Lemieux in the beginning, and many other people. John Cherry's attitude is you go up and down, you drop the gloves, you play lunch. Like he loved Bobby Orr because Bobby Orr is the complete player. Yeah. Scores, tough, team guy. You want to drop the gloves, okay.
That must have been very gratifying for Don Cherry when Bobby Orr came to his defense recently. Did he talk to you about that?
Well, Bobby stays in regular touch with them. It does mean a lot to him. Bobby doesn't have to do that, but Bobby's always stuck up for grapes. Bobby Orr is another guy that, he was badly abused by the same leftist crowd, the same crowd that went after Wayne Gretzky too.
Right.
This year for the Trump thing, like that pack of sports writers, like that's an easy job. You go down there, it's nice, and all the people that are in the game are. You get access to them. They give you all their stats, how to spell their names. You get a Haagen-Dazs ice cream still at the thing. You know what I mean? Like it's nice, warm place to sit. In news, which we work in, you're getting beat up. You're getting pushed by a police officer. Get over there. Someone's hitting you with a broom if you knock on a door. It's not exactly friendly.
No, it's not glamorous. No.
They don't have a perspective at all.
Joe, last two quick questions. Number one is you mentioned that Don Cherry should be reinstated. I mean, is he up for that, or what are you imagining? Maybe have him on for one last show to say, thanks and goodbye. What do you have in mind, or what would he like to do?
Well, I don't know what he would like to do, and I would never speak for Don Cherry ever. But what I would like to see happen is do what I've done. If you go on to TorontoSun.com or Google in Cherry's Corner, Joe Warmington, Don Cherry, you will see numerous times that I've gone and done Coach's Corner there at his house, just in his front. He has this front section that he sits in. And if and you mentioned about a special relationship with Don Cherry. That's not true. I don't have a special relationship with him. I have the same relationship with him as I have with you or with, any of the media people that I deal with. I have his phone number. I call him. There's no guarantee he'll call me back. He does call me back. If he doesn't like something I wrote, he'll tell me that. If he likes it, he'll tell me that. Most of the time, he will let me come and visit and interview him. Sometimes he says no. It's volatile at times because he doesn't agree with everything I write and say. I'm way, I am conservative columnist, but I'm pretty liberal on many things. And that he doesn't always agree with that, especially if I criticize the police. And I do that. That's part of my job to do that. But that doesn't mean I don't love the police. Of course I do. Even with Bill Blair during the G20, when I was so critical of the G20 back in 2010, Bill Blair, it was hard to go after him the way I did. And we're still friendly today. It's a very professional relationship. I still get along very well with Bill Blair, and he will seek me out. When he was a cabinet minister, he would come right over and say hello to me. And I think that's the way I approach it, and I know you approach it the same way. You can barb with people, but I learned from Bob McDonnell and Peter Worthington, the two greats, a little bit from Christy Blatchford as well, is you don't leave a bruise on people. You can bench them or criticize them, but don't leave a big black eye on their eye you don't embarrass them, right? And that's what I do. So that relationship is good with Don because of that style. As for what he should do, Ron MacLean should go with a camera crew, one camera, one sound guy, one lighting guy, sit in that same veranda and just have a chat for 10 minutes about everything and air that on Hockey Night in Canada, and it's over. I don't think that Don should have to go in the studio, but I think Don would go for that. But I can't speak for him. He is almost 92. The thing people say, well, he seems frail, and people thought that he signed off on the podcast, which he didn't. He just said
that. Yeah, that was my last question about the podcast. Yeah. But how is he? How is he? His health?
No, he's fine. I mean, he's 91, so that's the number one thing. He's just as sharp as he always was. It just doesn't come across. I mean, he gets, as Bobby Orr said, he gets tired, in a different way. But I can tell you, and I said this to Don, and Don agreed with me. When I talked to Don Cherry at his house, he's Don Cherry for about 10 minutes there. And then after that, coach's corner was 6 minutes. I mean, so that he's got 6 minutes in him. It's just that after a while, he's 91 and the lights are on and you get tired of it. He's fine. You just got to warm him up. And as I said, I know for a fact that I do a daily column in the Toronto Sun. It is not easy and it's very difficult. And I never know what I'm going to be doing. You do all your radio and your TV shows and different things you've done all these years. If you don't have to do it and next week you're not doing it, you're not able to do it. The only reason that you do it is because that's what you do. It's like a hockey player. They get out of bed in the morning. They don't feel like playing at Maple Leaf or at Scotiabank Arena that night. But by the time they have their coffee and they go to the therapist and they get their whatever's bothering them, they're all hurt. I mean, talking to Gretzky, Gilmore, Bobby Orr, I mean, it sounds like I'm name dropping, but I do talk to all those people. And they all tell me that you don't talk about other players' health. And Ron knows that he shouldn't have done it. He's apologized to the Toronto Star for that, not to us or publicly, but we've reported what he told the Toronto Star, is that he knows that he crossed the line there. You don't talk about each other's health. Nobody is, everyone's human, and everyone's got something bothering them, whether it's their eyes or whether it's something with their kids or as I said, Don has had a tough year, losing his daughter and his brother. Mm-hmm. So it was wrong what happened, but no, Don is fine. He can do it. I think the guy's the greatest Canadian. I really do. He was voted 7th greatest Canadian. Again, I don't care I don't agree with everything anybody says. You shouldn't. That's not healthy. Then you're in a cult. But I do agree with, the Canadiana side of Don Cherry. I do. And I do agree with the style of hockey. Look at the Florida Panthers won the Cup 2 years in a row. That's Don Cherry, Boston Bruins style hockey. That's what wins. So the guy's right on a lot of stuff. He should have that Order of Canada for everything that he's done. Mm. You remember when they were going to give him an honor down at RMC in Kingston, and some professor there went crazy and made it impossible for him to go. They were going to protest. He didn't bother going. Well, why is that? I mean, he's earned that. His grandfather worked there. I mean, that was a big honor for him. I hope we see the Order of Canada. Harper should have pushed. I know that they say that the Prime Minister doesn't help, but don't tell me they don't have a little bit of a sway.
Exactly. Well, let's hope they do that. And Don, you're right. Don Cherry deserves the Order of Canada. Let's be honest. The clock is ticking. Let's hope they do it soon, before it's too late.
Ron MacLean can help with that.
Yes, he could.
Ron will be watching this right here, and it'll be all over the internet, and others can see it. Mr. Bettman and all that stuff. And I think that to your point there is they were all friends with Don Cherry, and they all rode awfully high with him, including Mr. Bettman. And by the way, Mr. Bettman and all the other names I mentioned, these are all good people. Whether it's Mr. Gretzky, Mr. Rohr, all of them. These are really, really good people, and they are. And yeah, they're high profile, and they're gonna, whatever. But they are the people that have, in our generation, have done a lot, and they're quality people, and they'll do the right thing. When you've got people that hate Canada, they're doing the wrong thing, and I do blame Trudeau. I mean, Trudeau was fine in the first year or two, but after that. He basically turned being Canadian into being some sort of like a skunk or something. And there's a lot of damage that guy did to the country. And the fact is that Don Cherry is some of the I guess the main collateral damage of that. But the rest of us are too, as we can't afford to live day to day.
Right.
Well, Don Cherry is the guy who represents all of us, the working class person. And that includes white and blue collar. That's why he's loved coast to coast. And
100%.
Some people with them, but mostly people that hate Canada.
100%. He's a national treasure, and he deserved to be honored. Joe, we can look for your columns in the Toronto Sun. I know you're working on the Sir John A. Macdonald statue up in Kingston. Speaking of Kingston, we'll look forward to that. Hopefully,
Well, I'll
you
just
can.
say this about that. When they took that statue down, my dad is retired in Kingston, and we went over to see. And Sir Johnny MacDonald's statue had been in that same spot outside of the courthouse on near Queen's University for 130 years at that point. So imagine taking it down. And they tried to stick it in this old arena, which they turned into a storage area in Kingston. And it took them 2 hours to get him in there. He just would not go in there. A stubborn old, and they lied about him. I mean, they got all this residential schools. That thing was going 30 years before he was prime minister and 100 years after he had died. He didn't create residential schools. He didn't, all this stuff about the Indigenous kids. We were all worried about that. We've looked into it, and there hasn't been one Indigenous body found in any of those locations. So all those shoes out in front of the statues and all those things should be reinstated. And Kingston, in my opinion, should put that back up. I'm trying to convince the mayor of that. I think he's obviously on board. And so we're getting Sir Johnny thanks to Premier Ford and his team. He's back up at Queen's Park. We're going to get him back up in Kingston some way. I'm really going to push for that. I don't know about Montreal, but at least we get those one. And no more statues come down. I mean, I don't care. When I was in Europe, I saw statues in Paris that represent communism and represent the Nazi era. You got to keep some of this stuff there to remind people of what happened, whether you like it or you don't like it. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Leave the statues, leave the era alone, leave history alone, and interpret it, with the full value of what you know. None of us leave a perfect mark here on Earth. When we do a radio interview or a TV interview, there's going to be half the people that think, yeah, way to go. The other half that think, I don't agree with that. That's good. That is good. Nobody needs to be canceled. I'm not in favor of canceling Ron MacLean either, Richard. I don't know. How do you feel? I just don't. I think all he's got to do is come clean, fix this up like he knows he should, and then we move on. Wouldn't it be great if they did this and rewrote this?
Well, I think that's what oftentimes separates conservatives from the left is we don't subscribe to canceling. I don't want anyone to lose their job, but I do think that Ron MacLean betrayed Don Cherry. He owes him, at the very, very least, he owes him a public apology. And I like your idea. He should go there on bended knee and do a tribute to Don Cherry and have that play on Hockey Night in Canada. And there should be an open door anytime that Don Cherry wants to, I don't know, even from the comfort of his own home, record a video and have that played during Hockey Night in Canada. That should be extended to Don.
They can do it because I go over there. Sometimes I go with Jack Boland, who's a legendary sun photographer, Ernest Rosick as well. Then Don gets along great with them. They talk, and then I ask some questions. Those guys find a way to shoot it. We edit it together. It's not live like it was on Coach's Corner, but there's nobody better in broadcasting history, Canadian broadcasting history, than Don Cherry, even at 91. I mean, sure, you get Frank Sinatra singing at 85. It wasn't what he was when he was 45. But I don't care. Do you care? Paul McCartney yesterday sold out all his arena shows, Montreal and in Hamilton, 2 shows in Montreal. He's 85 or whatever he is. You got to say, well, he doesn't sound like he did when he was in the Beatles. I don't care.
Yeah,
I just want to see Paul McCartney. It's a legend, right? And
exactly.
I don't care what his politics are. I don't care what U2 or Pink Floyd's politics are. I'm not canceling them because I don't like their politics. I'll listen to their music, and that's it. And I'm not interested. They can lecture all day long. I don't care what they have to say. Or Springsteen. I'm not canceling Elon Musk, or I'm not canceling President Trump. And that you're right. That is a conservative value. I might disagree with them, but I respect them and their position, and they're welcome to have their opinion. And if they listen to mine, that's great. If they don't, that's great too. And so I think that's what Don Cherry's teaching us. And, not just teaching us, I think we all sort of push this agenda is sort of free speech and freedom of thought, but also finding a way to converse with people. And, you agree to disagree. I mean, it's a healthy thing. And forgive. Forgiveness is important. I'm not talking about serious crimes and things like that. That's a different issue. And we can go on about that. But I'm talking about this kind of stuff. And so I think there's a real opportunity here for Rogers Sportsnet. They did the right thing for Rob Ford. I mean, they went after Rob Ford pretty hard. This guy had a little bit of a addictions issue, and he had health issues, but he was a great mayor. But they used that as a leverage, and they fixed it by putting his name on that stadium highly appropriate. I mean, he was a football coach. That was the stadium he coached at.
Well,
it was a really nice gesture, but some politics had to happen for it to happen, but it did happen. It's the right thing. Don't cancel people for saying something on the radio you don't agree with, or saying something politically. And I don't agree with it. I would never take the Jack Layton ferry, or that there's a really cool statue of him on a bike, like one of those things down there by the, you know what I mean, down the Queen's Quay there.
Yeah.
Or Pierre Trudeau airport. People want to, no, leave it there. Pierre Trudeau, we didn't agree with everything he did, but he left an impact on the country, whether you agree or disagree. And Don Cherry's in that same vein, and I hope they do it, and I hope they do it soon.
100%.
Deserves it.
Joe Warmington, Toronto Sun. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your time.
Great to be with you. You have a great rest of the summer, and congratulations on all your success doing this. I'm really glad that you've invited me on. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Covering up, and what are you doing?
Cover up, for sure.
Oh,
on a Coach's Corner on Hockey Night in Canada. Want to wait for it? Get going.
Come on, let me down here.
On CBC.
Oh, you knocked all the batteries out, you dummy.